Greetings, I'm Solidus Skully, and welcome to Resident Evil Code Veronica. Published by Solidus Interactive, and yeah, we're playing the Dreamcast version, as most Dreamcast editions of Resident Evil were at the time. Whatever, enjoy the context.
The American Midwestern town, Raccoon City, has been completely decimated due to the T-Virus outbreak that was instigated by the international corporation Umbrella. Claire Redfield, who arrived in Raccoon City to search for her lost brother Chris, and a rookie police officer, Leon S. Kennedy, managed to escape from the city. But their ordeal was only a prelude of things to come. Three months later.
Your identification number is WKD 4496. Welcome to your new home.
Her name is Claire Redfield. We caught her trespassing in our Paris lab facility 10 days ago. She apparently infiltrated the complex looking for her lost brother, Chris Redfield, one of the surviving members of RPD's famous STARS teams. Don't move.
So yeah, as you can no doubt tell, both in terms of CG and well, quite soon once we get to the actual gameplay footage, this game has seen quite the upgrade from the PS1 versions. And well, let's just say that things are about to get very intense for Claire Redfield. But I mean, again, to kind of preface things here, I'm running on a bit of a tight schedule, so we're probably going to record these very batch-like, so I do apologize if I'm a little bit ecstatic, although this is, to preface things here, also my favourite Resident Evil game in the entire series. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident. Again, much like Silent Hill 2, I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to talk about this game, since I pretty much, I wouldn't say I know it like the back of my hand, but I am very experienced with it, and while Code Veronica does have a lot of its issues, or at least in regards to a lot of other fans, I will say that it is the sort of game where if you know what you're doing, you will have an absolute blast with it. But I suppose I'll probably save that for, well, when we get into the nitty-gritty of things. But in the meantime, yeah, things seems to have gone to hell in a handbasket, and, well, let's just say that Claire and, Mr. Rodrigo Ravel Cortez, that's not actually his name, I was just being a bit of a chick. No, Mr. Rodrigo here is injured, and, well, he's, out of it. If only I quit my lighter, I could see. And of course, we get that all-too-familiar item screen from previous games, and, well, you know what, I'll get into mechanics later, but in the meantime, we just need to see who this is. The plot thickens.
Go on. Get out of here. This place is finished. I don't know, it might have been a special forces team. But in any case, this prison's been taken over. Troops have been wiped out.
What are you saying?
You're free to leave the complex. But you may as well know you have no chance of getting off this island.
And what about you? What are you going to do?
Don't worry about me.
So now we're pretty much just free to leave, and one thing you will notice right off the bat, yeah, no more pre-rendered environments. And every area is fully rendered in 3D, and, well, quite frankly, it looks pretty stunning. And also it does fix an issue that I think a lot of PS1-era Resident Evil games tend to have, is in the sense that, again, whenever they use fixed camera angles, usually you'd find yourself not being able to adequately aim at zombies, or, you know, find your shots being obscured by the camera angle specifically. Not here, though, because, again, as you can see with the camera moving around with Claire as she traverses the environment, yeah, the camera is a lot more dynamic this time around, and again, you can... Again, it was a nice way of really handling the fixed camera sort of thing, and honest to God, again, it's a subtle change, but I can't help but enjoy it. And another thing you might also be noticing, no weaponry this time around. Unlike previous Resident Evil games where you at least start out with a handgun, all you have is a dinky little knife, a lighter, and that's pretty much all she wrote. And I suppose another thing I will also say right off the bat in regards to Code Veronica is that, again, while like most Resident Evil games, it is something that you can relatively breeze through if you're experienced with it, or at least have a general idea of what you're doing, it is also one of the few games where I feel like it really adequately adapted the whole sort of survival horror, conserve your resources, and, well, plan out your routes a lot more than Resident Evils 2 and 3, because while in games like, say, Resident Evil 2 and 3, you can pretty much have a shitload of ammo to spare by the game's end, even if you are on a first playthrough and, playing as a relative newbie, Code Veronica doesn't really give you that luxury, because, again, if you're not careful with your resources, or know what sort of ammo to conserve, and, you know, in terms of picking your battles or anything, well, let's just say that you can quite easily end up screwing yourself over very, very easily, which I think does add to this certain degree of a lot of people's complaints about Code Veronica, where, again, because of the fact that it was so rough around the edges, that, again, you can screw yourself over not entirely because of the player's own fault, but I don't know. And of course, now we have our first encounter with the zombie. And by God, they really wanted to show off this game's Dreamcast graphical capabilities. What with the amount of polygon detailing and, you know, both the character models, the facial movements, and, well, just generally the details all around here. Again, I will say that, like, I mean, in spite of, well, being over 20 years old at this point, Code Veronica is still quite a pretty looking game. It's got a really nice sense of art style about it. Well, I mean, maybe, except for this, because, oh my God, they're naked! Yes, indeed. Unlike other games where we usually have to go through like 4 or 5 environments before we get to them, naked zombies. They are gonna be nude for our pleasure. Or at least not really. And yeah, as I mentioned before, don't have a handgun, so you're pretty much gonna be, well, basically taking a few hits, or unless you're very good with a knife, which, I mean, again, I'm not really an expert with a knife in this game, but again, if you can master it, this is around about the point in the Resident Evil series where the knife actually became incredibly fucking useful. I know a lot of people usually attribute that to Resident Evil 4, but Code Veronica, again, if you know how to use the knife, you can really do some damage with that thing. So, again, it can make a segment like this trivial if you know what you're doing, but, yeah, first-time players, you're pretty much just gonna be trying to run away. But again, we really don't need to go into that area up until, well, it's necessary, and that's mainly in terms of getting that briefcase, but for the time being, it's pretty much just Resident Evil as you know and love it. But what is this?
Wait, don't shoot!
Who are you?
Huh? You're not a zombie. Well, great. Wait right there. I'm coming over. Sorry about that little misunderstanding. but I thought you were another one of those monsters.
Shut up. Make one wrong move and I'll shoot.
Relax, beautiful. I said I was sorry. My name's Steve. I was a prisoner on this island. And I'm guessing you're not from Umbrella either.
No, I'm Claire. Claire Redfield.
Claire? Nice. I'll remember that. Hey, I hear there's an airport around here. And once I find it, I can finally escape from this crazy island. I'll see ya.
Hey, wait up!
I don't want you following me, lady. You'll only slow me down.
Oh my god, his voice is so noticeably Canadian and nasally. But yes, that was Steve Burnside, and any Resident Evil fans who've at least had the pleasure of experiencing Code Veronica Rex, yeah, you might be wondering what the hell's up with Steve's hairstyle and why does he look so different? Well, again, that was mainly to do with a few of the changes between Dreamcast and the PS2 version. I believe, again, I can't really confirm this, but I think part of the reason why they changed his hairstyle was because, alongside Claire, Leon was initially meant to be in the game, I believe. Or at least at an earlier version, because, at the risk of spoiling something here, yeah, Leon was initially meant to die in this game, but I think it was either, but again, I mean, if it's false, then Steve just had a coincidentally similar hairstyle based on popular 90s trends, but, yeah, I mean, if the rumor was true, then I suppose Kamiya probably nixed that idea, because, again, Resident Evil 4 was still a thing at this point, and even though I think Tony Redgrave was said to be the protagonist, yeah, I think in later versions of the game, they pretty much just wanted Leon to be the star, so yeah, that's pretty much why they ended up changing Steve's hairstyle for Code Veronica Rex. Not that it really fucking matters anyway, because they pretty much changed Leon's look by the time of Resident Evil 4 anyway, so, Either way, the point is, Steve has a different hairstyle in the Dreamcast version, and, well, take it or leave it, really. And another thing you might be noticing if you're, one for your very World War II-esque European architecture, yeah, you might be noticing right off the bat that, Rockfort Island was actually based on, some Nazi concentration camps. There is a lot of history to unpack with that, but, again, the whole, European, architecture is a bit of a key theme, and even in terms of storytelling, actually, but, again, I'll talk about that when it's a little bit more apropos. In the meantime, though, this building is pretty much a one-time place you want to go to. Again, it is worth your while to take out the zombies in this little area because, well, you do get access to some weapons that are pretty helpful early on, but again, that is also, in a very similar manner to, I want to say Resident Evil 3, it does take a lot of that high-risk, high-reward sort of factors about it, like not necessarily in the same vein as, you know, fight Nemesis to get better weapon parts or anything like that, but more so in the sense of, again, if you want to get some better toys, you're going to be going up against the odds in terms of zombies or BOWs, so again, it's really going to be putting you to the test. Obviously, you do have to go through some of these areas for the sake of getting background documents about the game's plot, or getting specific weapon types, or, you know, key items that you need to progress, but again, ultimately, if you want to get some of the better toys in this game, well, brave heart, Tegan. And again, to further the concentration camp metaphor, you really begin to learn that this game's atmosphere, unlike any other Resident Evil game, at least, save for a couple of others here and there, at least during the classic era, really, yeah, this one really amps up the creep factor, and again, it's something that really does, well, at least on the first playthrough, back when I first played the game back on the Dreamcast, yeah, it really did sell me on the game, because, again, it's a sort of eerie atmosphere that I don't think any other Resident Evil game that I'd played up to that point had ever really sold me on, and, like, even to this day, this game still has a very unique appeal and atmosphere about it that, yeah, really gets under my skin. And, diary entries like this just sell that. I mean, obviously, this is still Resident Evil during its classic days, and again, it does still have quite a bit of that comedy, even if unintentionally so, but again, like, I mean, compared to a lot of other games in the franchise, this game really does get under your skin, man, and it's... oh, I love it. And again, I think another reason part of that is to do with the soundtrack as well. again, it's not Masami Ueda doing the soundtrack, because I believe at this point he was busy working on Devil May Cry. But the soundtrack of this game is really fucking good. Honest to God, one of my favorites in the series, but it gets me excited as hell, man. I don't know, this game just really puts you on edge, and again, evil is lurking at every turn. Resident of the evil. And again, this is exactly what I was talking about. Again, you have to fight a zombie. But of course, he has some dual pistols. And again, that's also another new mechanic that Code Veronica introduces. Dual wheel, Claire Redfield looking badass on the cover. Which I think was actually used in one of the promo shots, actually, for the game. And again, it is actually quite useful, because to talk about the mechanics here for a second, dual-wielding weapons isn't just like some, looking cool for the sake of itself. No, I mean, Claire at will actually aim at two separate targets, if they happen to be within her vicinity. So again, these two dual pistols, again, while they do have a very limited ammo capacity, as you can see here, while they also take up 2 item spaces, and, have a percentage about them similar to that of the machine gun from Resident Evil 3, yeah, she's packing some heat. And, well, these pretty much will be the sort of weapons I recommend you do use early in the game, and at least conserve, well, at least by the time you're at least a little bit more prepared in terms of your handgun ammo, at least conserve up until, you start dealing with some BOWs. Not that you're really going to meet any majorly powerful ones. Again, this really isn't the example, because again, if you played literally any Resident Evil game in the past, you know exactly what that is. But again, we won't be seeing those particular enemies until later. Again, they really try and build suspense here, but again, with the fact that, we've got some barred windows and some enemies being eaten up, you know what's coming. But yeah, I also suppose another reason why Code Veronica can be seen as a little bit of the black sheep of the series, or at least in terms of the classic era, is primarily down to the fact that, unlike Resident Evils 2 and 3, where what you need to do and where you needed to go was pretty easily laid out, yeah, this one tends to be a little bit more larger in terms of its scope, and as such, the exploration elements kind of harken back to the first Resident Evil, where, again, like Chris and Jill exploring the mansion, you weren't exactly quite sure what was plot relevant and what you needed to do until you at least got a significant amount of exploration down. And again, Code Veronica gets that down pat, but again, unlike Resident Evil 1, where you felt like it was just early days and they were testing the design to see, what would work and what wouldn't, Code Veronica, on the other hand, really does, I don't know, give you a lot of key points in order to follow, and, I don't know, it's open in scope, but at the same time, you also have enough of a hint to know what you need to do and where you need to go, and quite frankly, the game's fantastic about that. And again, we have another segment where you gotta get rid of your items and, well, hack it, really. Again, it's pretty much asking you to get rid of all metallic items, because again, if you don't, then, well, that happens. They seal off the area, and basically you gotta put away your metallic items, and make sure you deposit the lighter. That's pretty much one of the few things that everybody forgets whenever they do shit like this, but yeah, just pretty much deactivate the thing, and word of advice, make sure you pick up every item inside this thing. Unlike the limitless item boxes, again, they won't transfer to anything, so again, make sure you get any healing items or items of importance you want to get, and most especially the fire extinguisher that we're going to be getting next part, I believe. Which again is pretty much a key facet to the puzzle, as we can see here. 3D printer. A little bit quaint by today's standards, and actually a technology that's a little bit more readily available today than I think it would have been back in the year 2000, but regardless of such. That's pretty much our primary puzzle of the now. Basically, we're gonna get some non-metallic material, and, well, we basically gotta be replicating ourselves a key. Much in a similar vein to the wooden emblem puzzle of Resident Evil 1. And now that I start thinking about it in that sense, it really does make a certain bit of trivia that I have about Code Veronica's development history, all the more apropos, but again, I think I might save that for the next part because I've waffled on for long enough. And, well, we've got a cutscene coming up in the next part, so on that note, I am Solidus Skully, keep it new metal, and as we gather a few more items to prepare for the journey ahead, well, Claire's gonna be in for hell. And she was off looking for Chris, but Chris ain't nowhere to be found. Also as to why Leon isn't joining her, well, again, development history / Resident Evil 4 stuff. Whatevers. Basically put all your metallic items in here, and I'll see you dudes and dudettes later. Bye.